these Colombians had guys like you all over the Eastern Seaboard, all the way up to Canada, and they would make drops and keep dropping as they moved south.
First drop was up by Maine.
Yeah, so they went all the way north to Maine and then came south instead of the other way around.
Outside instead of the inside.
Right.
Went way out, dropped off in Maine, came down, hit Boston. I was the next stop. And then they hit the Carolinas, maybe Georgia, Florida after that. I don't know, you know.
Wow. Okay, so you were second stop.
Third stop.
Third stop.
Yeah.
Wow. And you were the only one in that area in New York with this connect, right?
With this guy. There was, at the time, this was like early. There's only two other people I knew in the New York area. There could have been more. But I only knew two other people that were smuggling weed into Long Island or New York or New Jersey. So
you were so early in the business.
Everything was in Florida.
Yeah.
And it was like Cowboy Central down there.
Yeah.
And I got to remind me later. I got another story about that.
So New York's wide open.
It's wide open. It's a freebie, you know, unless you just up.
Yeah.
And I almost up.
Well, how much pot were you getting?
40,000 pounds.
Wow.
And I needed another boat, you know, so I got this Palmer Johnson, another big yacht. The Palmer Johnson was cool because it didn't roll because I had a chining hole. And it's about water displacement. So they made the round bottom, you know, it was easier to get through a water displacement, but it rolled, rocked and rolled, and picture it rocking and rolling with 40,000 pounds. I said, wow, this is going to be serious if it's a heavy sea.
Did you know you were getting 40,000?
Yeah.
Okay, so you would place the orders beforehand.
Yeah. I was from the desert. I knew nothing about boats.
Right.
I went there and I learned a lot, man.
Yeah.
You know, and we got this guy that had a boatyard, and that was the big piece. We had to get the boatyard. And there was one, you know, we had to make sure no one was living aboard any other boats.
Right.
And if there were, they weren't going to be there.
Right.
But I paid the guy, you know, $200,000 just to use his, you know, boatyard.
Wow.
And he could just say, oh, I'll never rat you. I'll say it. And I was just cowboying it.
And that's where you were going to unload.
Yeah, except it was the Great South Bay on Long Island. And it's notoriously shallow. But I checked it out. You know, I looked at the draft of my Fed ship, and I thought, sure. But the weight brought it down even more. So I got within 10 feet of getting into the boatyard. So what I had to do was a Palmer Johnson. I stuck it at the end of the outermost part of the dock and brought the Fed ship right up to it. It was called the Peregrine. And we had to unload. It was just twice the work. Unload the Fed ship onto the Palmer Johnson, onto the dock. It was like, God, it was exhausting.
How many people were working for you?
I didn't have enough for that because of that, you know, not being able to get all the way in. I had 5 on the boat and I had 4 on the shore.
And these are all local guys that you know?
Yeah, all high school guys.
Wow. So you're unloading 40,000 pounds. How much is each pound? What are you paying? Per pound for 40,000.
You see, I was getting most of it on the arm from Isaac.
Yeah.
I could have used the money and bought it for cash, but Isaac wanted to make money too.
Right.
So it was like an 11,000 pound profit, gross profit.
Yeah.
I would say I ended up with $1.5 million in my pocket.
Yeah. Okay.
And I paid the captain $200,000. I paid each guy that worked on it $50,000. You know, and you know, the truck driver I gave, you know, they were friends. I made sure they were going to have good lives, you know. I was generous.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, so.
And that's one run.
That was one run, but I should have gotten caught. I don't know how I didn't get caught because I came through the cut, and you're right there at Fire Island, and the Coast Guard station's right there. And I didn't think of the water line. That's another thing I learned. You know, it was underwater.
Right.
You know, you got the boot cap. It's usually about this far above.
It's because you have so much pot in it. It's literally pushing the boat down. It's like sinking the boat almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we got it off, and I said, this is it for the Fed ship. You know, I went out and I bought an 83-foot trawler.
A trawler.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could hold 40. I didn't need 2 boats. Held it all.
Nice. How much does a trawler cost back then?
125,000.
Yeah.
It was almost brand new.
How long did it take you to move a 40,000-pound load?
I moved it quick. I actually sat there one day and I said, how do people smoke all this?
Yeah.
Now, I told you about Virginia. Those mountain boys, they couldn't get enough weed.
Yeah.
I would put half the load, 20,000 pounds, and it would make a stop in West Virginia and in Huntington, and then it would go on to Seattle, and Seattle to Canada and Alaska.
So now you're not driving anymore.
No.
You're too big time. You got bigger responsibilities getting these huge
coordinating
loads.
all this was a lot of work, man.
For sure.
All of a sudden, it's just not me. I got like 17 people sometimes working for me.
Wow.
Sometimes I didn't trust people, right? Like I said, I would come by with a rental truck. I'd make everybody, I said, whatever you're doing, you got to drop what you're doing, even if you're eating dinner, and get in the truck. I locked them all in the back of the truck. I didn't want them to see where we were unloading.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, did your driver, after he made all of these stops around the country, did he then come back with cash?
He came back, bought cash, and then my friend, Corey, Seattle, he would just, ship the rest of bring the rest of the money back.
Yeah.
We had a pilot in Seattle that was great. His name was he's probably dead by now. His name was Larry.
Oh, Larry, he's dead. Yeah.
He had a Cheyenne too. What a plane. Turboprop. It was beautiful, man. It was a corporate jet, and he was hired by a big corporation to fly them around.
Yeah.
And he would fly. I had to go with him. We went into Chilliwack Airport into Canada. It was right through the mountain range.
Yeah.
And it was about maybe 90 miles from Vancouver, maybe 60. I can't remember. But Chilliwack was the place. What we did is we went through the mountain peaks, and that guy could fly, man. It was all clouds, and he was I saw off the wing, I saw, like sides of cliffs, and it was insane. And we landed in Chilliwack, and we went through customs.
And you're loaded?
No, we went through dry. And I had all my photography equipment. And I said, we're photographers. We're going to do a lot of road trips around, flight trips, filming.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, no problem. And then we went out cruising around, and we snuck back through the mountains and went and loaded up and brought it back the same exact way. I see. Then we unloaded it, right? Yeah. Customs were still there. Wow. But they weren't looking at us because we were already cleared.
Right. So then after you get your money back, how long do you have to get Isaac his money? Because back in the day, most of this pot from South America was fronted. It was on the arm, as you say.
He was a pain in the ass, Yeah. He was always like calling up, worried. Where's the money? Where's the money? But I gave it to him when we got it.
Yeah.
I said, you kill me, you're not going to get anything.
Right. So it sounds
just
like
relax. And then his confidence built, and he trusted me. So
how long does it take to turn around from the minute you unload the pounds in Long Island to getting all the money back?
Several weeks.
It's a several-week turnaround. Yeah. So then how many drops were you doing? One a month?
Well,
I'm sorry. How many unloading? How many ships? How often are the ships coming up with loads?
I did maybe 3 trips a season.
Okay. Okay.
Well, when I did the offloading, I did 4. But when I started going all the way down myself, it was like 3.
Okay. So you start going all the way down. So you just keep building this thing. You keep building and building and building.
It was a steady progression. Yeah. From being at the Elegant Pool Room selling dimes a hash to where I was at the moment.
So what made you say, I want to go down to Colombia now? I've got the connect. He drops off 40,000-pound loads at my back door. Now I want to go down there. Is it for a better price? Like what would make you want to take that kind of risk?
Independence, it was also, remember I told you I like to be on the road?
Yeah.
It was like going down there. It was a long way. It was 12, 13 days down, 12, 13 days back.
You take a ship down there?
Yeah.
You take your trawler?
The trawler.
Wow.
Yeah, we had to, get extra fuel on top of it. We had a 20,000 gallon tank, and I still didn't trust it. I put in an extra auxiliary tank.
And how many people did you have on the trawler?
There was 4 of us.
Okay.
I was not the old man in the sea. Okay, let's make that clear.
Yeah.
I hired the captain from McAllister Tugboat Line in New York Harbor. And then there was another guy that went to Schuyler University, I believe, by City Island. It was a nautical engineering school. He was a graduate, so if anything went wrong with the engine,
Yeah.
it was going to get fixed.
Wow.
You know, I had it covered.
So you had experts.
Oh, yeah. I didn't care. I gave him the money, and I wanted results, man.
I love the times back then were so corrupt. It's like you have these legitimate people who are like, oh, you want to pay me a couple $100,000 to bring back huge federal amounts of pot? Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as you're paying me. Like, try that now, you know?
I wouldn't try it now. Before any of this
no shit.
happened, I went to my attorney, Gerald Lefcourt in New York, and he was a big-time attorney. He was great. He was the head councilman for the Black Panthers. He was with Abby Hoffman.
Yeah.
He was big-time. And I said, all right, Jerry, I'm giving you some money down, because this girl, Monica, and the way I found him, who did the Night of the Living Dead? George Romero. They recommended him.
Okay.
And they loved heroin. So
Heroin.
we were doing heroin.
Wow.
And he was doing that movie for like $25,000-$30,000. The first Night of the Living Dead. Well, anyway, he told me to go see Jerry. So I go see Jerry, and I give him like $10,000 down as a retainer.
Yeah.
And I said, tell me something. If I smuggle marijuana, over 1,000 pounds, what is it? What is cocaine? What is heroin? What is pills?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, the weed, any amount, is only 0 to 5 years. No, that was for heroin. I'm sorry. It was a 5-year straight sentence.
For any amount of heroin.
No, of weed.
Okay. So any amount of weed was a 5-year bid.
And back then they had a parole board. So it was a guideline system where you got 24 to 36 months with a max out of 39 months.
Right. So you could be out in 2 years.
Yeah.
You could have a gajillion pounds of weed.
Yeah.
You could be out in 2 years. No brainer.
Yeah. And the coke, he said, it's a 20-year sentence, but they're going to nail you for 60 years with this.
Right.
For selling, for racketeering, they're going to try to get you every way they can.
Yeah.
So I never got with coke or heroin.
Yeah.
And they were bootlegging Quaaludes back then. Quaaludes was a big deal.
Yeah.
I
Lubes.
loved those when they were around.
Oh, trust me. That's one of my biggest regrets was never being around during the lewd era.
Well, they had 50-gallon oil drums loaded with Quaaludes.
Yeah.
And, they were bootlegs.
Where did they come from?
They made them in Colombia.
Right.
They got themselves a chemist and they made them.
Wow.
Pressed them out. The problem was you do one, you'll get slightly high. You do another, and you just load it.
Yeah.
There was no uniformity.
I see. So you passed on that.
Oh, yeah. That
On that
pills were
opportunity.
60 years, too.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So there you go. You keep doing what you're doing. Pot.
Yeah.
It's pot.
Yeah.
So now you've got your trawler, you've got your crew, you've got a lot of money behind you, you got all your connects, everything's in place, you got your buyers in the States, and you got your plug, your growers in Medellin. Tell us about the process. How would you go all the way down there? Where would you go? How much would you pick up? And what were the routes you took to get back?
Okay. I didn't want to go through Florida. That was a no-no. That's going on the inside. You're going through the Mona Passage by Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic.
Uh-huh.
And then you're going up the coast. And, I thought it was suicidal, but a lot of people did it, and they got away with it for years.
Yeah.
But I went on the outside and went way out and went out in the ocean and came around. That's why I had extra fuel tanks.
But how'd you get down? The trip going down to Colombia.
Oh, I took the inside going down.
Okay. You're going down. And now, do you have cash on you?
Yeah.
Okay. What are you taking down there? Are they fronting you? Or are they giving
No,
you?
I'm giving them like $250,000 up front.
Okay.
And that's covering the size of the weed anyway.
Yeah.
But, I was getting better quality weed. That's why I was paying Isaac like $45 a pound down there, you know?
Yeah.
And plus I was getting him a piece of the action if I was going to take it for 2 weeks, you know,
Yeah.
and he was going to give it to me on the arm for 2 weeks.
Right. Okay.
So don't ask me the exact numbers.
Because
It's
45 is pretty expensive. We know that from talking to guys like you from that
Yeah.
era. They would $10 was about the good wholesale bottom price.
depending on how much you were buying,
Right.
you know, like the guy that was doing like 30 million pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was getting it for $10 because he's
Yeah.
doing so much.
Did
you
they
know?
give you any like scales? Like, did they say once you hit this amount, we'll give you a price break? Like, did you do any
No,
haggling with the Colombians?
I haggled about quality.
Okay,
And that's
more
why
important.
I was paying 45.
I see.
I said, Isaac, this shit is commercial.
Mm-hmm.
That was the like Mexican dirt weed,
Yep.
you know, that we call the Colombian, you know, commercial.
Yep.
I couldn't sell it for 175 in New
Okay.
York.
So you'd rather pay more
Yeah.
for higher quality and maybe bring back a little less quantity.
Yeah, no, same quantity, but just
pay
higher
more.
quality, man.
Right.
Boom, the cash is right there.
Okay.
You know, you're eliminating a month of
Yeah.
getting your money back.
Right. Right.
Because you got competition.
Yeah.
Like that other guy, you know, he's bringing all that shit in.
Mhm.
He's bringing gold and red bud, and you know,
Yeah.
he's competing.
Yeah.
So I have to compete against people like that.
So is it Colombian gold that you're buying?
A few trips, yes. And then he had some from the mountains he wanted me to try.
Okay.
And that stuff was really good, man.
Nice. Nice.
It was like a dark green, dark rusty color. And it was just really good.
Okay, so
really
where
nice
where
high.
would the trawler dock? Where would you pick up?
In Colombia?
Yeah.
In Maracaibo.
Maracaibo.
He had a place, that's a little village, and they
Okay.
would roll, you know, it was notorious to be shallow water,
Mhm.
but he found a place, and they would roll out this dock, and they would bring us the bales.
Now, I don't know if we can look this up. I could be wrong. Is Maracaibo not in Venezuela?
It's Venezuela.
It's Venezuela.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so it's super remote up there.
Yeah. Well, actually, it was a city. We were like just north of Maracaibo.
Okay, so you're actually going to Venezuela.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
That's
Isaac originally, that's where his boats were docked,
right.
in Venezuela.
So the Colombians would move their loads from the north, like the Santa Marta
Yeah.
region, and then they would
No,
move.
not Santa Marta. I was getting them from the mountains, and I was getting it.
Which mountains? There's a lot of mountains in
Oh
Colombia.
God, what do you call it? I forgot the name. The Nevada. I don't know. It was. If you look, there's two strips of mountains coming down.
Right.
Now there's the valley that goes towards, you know, where they plant a lot.
Yeah.
And then you go, you know, that's a lower elevation of planting.
Right.
But if you go higher up in the hills, you're going to get better weed,
I see.
you know, in the elevation.
Yeah.
Now, they had to cross, you know, over into Venezuela.
I
yeah.
see. Okay.
But to get to Santa Marta is probably the same distance.
Right. Okay. So your connects that were based in Medellin, their people harvested the weed in the mountains and
Yeah.
then actually shipped it over the border and then got it straight to you guys.
Yeah,
on the
I
coast.
would never take a load without looking at it.
Right.
I will look
Right.
at it all over, man.
So how many pounds of weed would you have to inspect? You'd go through a whole.
Oh, 10 random bales.
Wow. Okay.
You know, but they're pretty uniform, and they're not gonna,
Yeah.
you know, he knew I was really fussy. If I got it up there and it wasn't what it's supposed to be,
Yeah.
he knew he wasn't getting his money for a long time.
Right.
So he's a businessman.
Right. And he must have loved you. So how much are you
But-
picking up?
Oh, 40,000.
40,000.
Well, Medellin was really a trip, man, back then, before Escobar.
Mm-hmm.
When I was there, Escobar it was ripping off refrigerators and air conditioners.
Right.
You know, down
That's
in
right.
Cali, I think. Up in
Yeah.
Cali. But,
Yeah. Yeah, this is before the cocaine cartels, so it's
Yeah.
really just different weed conglomerates. That's what Colombia was before cocaine. It was these different. It was kind of like
you
Mexico,
had the coke, but not in the abundance.
No,
The
no.
market wasn't built up yet.
right? So,
It was still a bad thing in New York if you were snorting coke.
A bad thing?
A bad thing back in the 70s. Not a lot of people were doing it like that.
I thought it was the Surgeon General said coke was nothing to worry about. I think it was. Well, I think it was a good thing. It meant you had money.
It became that way.
Okay.
In the later 70s. But I'm talking like in the earlier 70s, you know, you're a bad person if, you know,
really
doing heroin, doing coke. Not everyone did it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Well, yeah, of course not. So you go to Maracaibo, you dock in Maracaibo. It took you about 2 weeks to get down there?
No, about 2 weeks.
Wow. You got all your food and provisions on board. You're all stocked up.
We had 7,000 gallons of water, water tank, over 20,000 gallons. I don't know how big. I never measured the auxiliary gas tank that the engineer put in. Wow. But we could be out for a month and not run out of fuel.
Wow. Okay.
You know, probably 6 weeks, to be honest, you know, with the extra fuel.
Yeah. So how does it work when you get down there? Do you actually get on land to inspect everything?
The first time we were coming in, I didn't know what to expect. I left something off which was interesting, how I got there. You know, can I step back one step?
Sure.
Okay, I'm doing the offload. One of the last ones, you know, the fourth one, the captain calls me up and he tells me to come up to the bridge. I go up there. And he says, no more. If you got playboys, hustlers, and, you know, sneakers, no more hustlers, you know, because the guys end up, you know, looking at them and playing the whole way home. So the sneakers were okay because they were barefoot. But he said, look, go back to Medellin. They want you to go all the way down. Can you do that? So that's what got me to go down. And he was a German captain, and he's the one that told me that's what you got to do. He said that's where the money's at.
Yeah.
So he liked me. We did okay, man.
Right.
Yeah.
So how much more profit did you stand to make from going down there as opposed to just offloading it in New York?
I was paid a flat $1 million a trip in New York for offloading.
Okay.
And, you know, I took care of my people, so there wasn't much in my pocket. You know, I had to pay the boat yard. I had to, you know, it's expensive running boats, repairing boats. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it was the 70s. And, you know, you could buy a Ferrari then for like $27,500.
Yeah.
You know, so the money we're making was insane.
Yeah, yeah. So how much more are you making bringing it back from Colombia?
I was sticking $1.5 million in my pocket in profit.
Wow.
Now, I didn't get it in one lump sum. It was always floating somewhere around the country.
Right, exactly.
But at the end of the day, I was making off the offload maybe $300,000. They paid us $1 million. Yeah. I took care of my boys.
Yeah,
I was making $300,000.
Okay,
so that's quite a incentive to go back down and do it for yourself.
So you 4x your money basically.
Yeah,
going down there. Okay, so tell us how it works when you get down to Maracaibo.
We got attacked. The whole village was going, argh.
Really?
I went to my brother. He was next to me. I said, God, they're going to put us in a pot and boil us.
Right.
I didn't know what they wanted. Then all of a sudden, you know, they roasted a pig for us. And I met the police chief.
Wow.
And the priest came and he blessed the boat. I said, what is this?
No way.
Yeah, it was just a crappy little village.
Yeah.
But they had, inland more. It was more populated. But, we had to go to a warehouse to examine the weed, and that's where they kept it. But they were all making money, man. And they were like, Venezuela they were dirt poor, man.
Yeah. So did your Medellin connects meet you there, or did they have like a helper there? Who met you when you first got down there?
He was Isaac's bodyguard.
Okay.
He was always jealous of me, because he liked being the hombre. Mm-hmm. He wanted to be his right-hand man. Mm. And he was like, he was a bad dude.
Okay. So then, and then they load him onto trucks and send the trucks to the boat?
They bring it to the little huts on the beach, and they rolled out the dock.
Yeah.
And they had manpower, man. They just loaded them up.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like a goddamn movie. Just watching your bales getting loaded.
Yeah.
And you're not fronted. You're paid. You're cash on delivery.
I put $250 up front.
Okay. What's
So-
the whole load worth? To them, like how much do you owe them?
Well, the gross was probably 40,000 times, say 250 on an average from what I would get. What does that come out to? 10, $11 million,
Mhm.
something like that.
Okay.
And
so then the next time you
I
come,
owed them $7 million.
Mhm.
So I came out with $4 million,
Okay.
roughly.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry I didn't write this down. This is like 50 years ago.
Okay. So you're getting quite a lot on credit.
I'm paying. He's got nothing to lose except his ship. That 250.
I'm talking about the Colombians. You owe them $7 million.
Yeah, that's because they're like partners.
Yeah.
I wouldn't get the weed I was getting without it.
Right. So then you would bring down the next run.
Yeah.
You would bring them down 7 million plus whatever you're going to put down for the next load.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So tell us about the load on the way back. You go way around.
Go on the outside.
Yeah. Tell us what the outside means.
Outside, just open ocean, man. It's beautiful. You don't see land. You see more stars than you could ever imagine. And sometimes the seas got, what I liked about it is the distance between the waves get longer. It's like you get close to shore and they start compacting.
Yeah.
And, we hit some bad weather sometimes. And, it was pretty challenging. I looked at my brother. I said, Bobby, if the Coast Guard came, I think they'd be saving us right now.
Yeah, right.
It was hard.
Wow.
I had to tie myself into the wheelhouse because it would start throwing you around. He couldn't even stand next to me. And, we went on 4-hour shifts.
And where are the bales?
Bales are down in the fish storage.
Yeah. Did you ever feel like water was going to come into the boat and damage them?
No.
Okay.
No, we didn't get in that big a sea.
Okay.
You got to be careful with some of the waves. There were swells. I never hit any I was lucky. You can get, the wind can really tear up the ocean, and you get that water coming in. It was a rolling sea most of the time. You throttle up and then throttle down on the backside and make sure the angle's right. When I first started doing it, I remember I buried the front light of the bow. And, it's a technique you learn over time.
How long did it take you to get back?
Same amount. Took about 13 days.
Okay. And then do you get back? Where do you unload?
Okay. Couldn't unload at the Great
old
South Bay anymore.
Right. That spot's
Because that
compromised.
trawler, I think, was 8-9 feet to draft, maybe. So that was out. Way out of the question. I found a guy that was the manager and maintenance man for an estate in the Pocomoke Bay. And you know how Long Island has the North Fork and the South Fork? In between is like Gardiner's Island and the Shelter Island, and that's the Pocomoke Bay. And I found a very wealthy man that had this huge estate, and I gave the guy, some good cash, and he returned his back. And I had my aunt, who lived next door to me growing up. Her husband died and left her in debt. I rented a house on the water, and it had, like neighbors, but not close. So that was my backup. I had 2 houses.
Wow.
The other was so just perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had no trouble coming in
Deep
from
water. It was perfect.
And you had no trouble from Coast Guard on your way in?
No.
Wow. So you literally just pull up to a residential home.
Yeah.
Couldn't be easier.
It was an estate.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And then you just unload. Do you have your drivers there?
No.
Who's meeting you?
That was an island.
Oh, I see.
And I'm getting very specific now. I don't want to, it was an island in the Pocomoke, and what we did was take it by van. Little by little, we took it across to East Hampton, and there was no worry. It was safe where it was.